the last time I bought it was £2,000 a year. If I do go away, I take my equipment with me.
Yeah.
What has sort of lifted in the last 10 years particularly is...
Well, hello and welcome to this week's episode of the About Small Business podcast. In this week's episode, I'm actually going to be chatting to Michael Knowles of MK Print and Design. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
You're welcome.
Now, print and design, I remember when I was growing up all those years ago, it seemed like a really glamorous job. You're responsible for so much information, and I'm talking like when I grew up, obviously that's pre-internet, and you were responsible for the delivering of all this information. Basically, anything that you find on the web now that had to be printed on paper. Has it been that glamorous?
Well, no, is the simple answer.
Yeah.
When I started in print in 1981,
Right.
the computers weren't around either. The web, obviously, but certainly wasn't there, or the computers. So all design was done on a drawing board, basically, whether that be graphic design or artistic design, and everything was started from scratch with basically a pencil or a pen.
Going back to your school days then, were you someone that loved to draw at school and just loved that side of things?
I preferred the technical drawing side as opposed to artist,
Right.
as an artwork. So
Do you know what? I'm just conscious on that one. Because there is a difference, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm just wondering if if a modern audience would fully appreciate that. So can you just give us a quick rundown of what I think might be termed as fine art, which would be sort of the drawing and technical drawing? What would be the differences?
Well, fine art is basically freehand, whereas you're drawing an image of something yourself or copying something, whereas technical drawing is straight lines. In geometry, really, as for instance a planner would use, in designing forms, as opposed to maybe art and design on a leaflet. You would be designing a form for a printer or a home office printer or an office printer to print the information on that form to then send to a customer.
Yes, it's I do take interest in this because I do recall my GCSEs. I actually did both, and I was better at fine art, like your standard art and just the drawing, but I wanted to be better at the technical drawing, which was your forte. But there was so much more maths involved. And I remember we were sat there. You had a special board, didn't you? A drawing board.
You do, with a special sort of ruler, which has parallel rules at the side.
And then you'd have your set squares and things like that, where you'd get your angles and things like that. And I remember our teacher. I really liked him, actually, Mr. Jarvis, he was called. But I remember he was one of these. He was straightforward. He was honest, and he says, I remember him telling us, says, right, well, next year I'm not going to be running the A-level course for this because none of you are good enough. All right, so
they wouldn't be allowed to say that now, of course. Would
no,
they?
they wouldn't. But on reflection, he's probably right. But
they would find a positive rather than a negative. That's right.
But clearly, you were good enough, and
well, obviously now the way design has moved on, from the drawing board to basically originally was the Apple computer, which we still use today. The Apple, we find the Apple easier to use, but the software that we use now, which creates people drawing, I suppose, is the Adobe suite, which works both with PC and through Apple machines. But historically, the printing industry from, I would say, the late 80s, early 90s used Apple.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've had some experience with the newspaper industry. I did work for a newspaper for a couple of years, and I can remember, I think it must have been when that newspaper was going through its transition, and you would have your artists, and then you would have your paste and cut artists, and they would be there, send it, and then this would go through to the press, and then all those people basically lost their jobs. as it all went digital. And I actually remember one of my first computer courses was Quark Express, which I'm guessing will be something you're familiar with.
Quark Express is a piece of software which converts your artwork, Adobe artwork, and it converts it to make it print ready.
Hang on, is it still going?
Yeah.
And do you use
Express,
it? Right.
Well, we don't have to in a lot of cases now, because a lot of the printing machines for low volume are digital presses, which work similarly, as you'll know, to an office printer where you have 4 toner colours, CMYK, and that merges to make the end product and all the colours in the end product. Whereas years ago, those digital machines, to print full colour, you'd have to print 4 colours on separate 4 ink units on a printing machine to achieve the same.
So you've been in it, I suppose, right from the beginning then, I suppose, haven't you?
Yeah.
From the sort of old-fashioned times. You personally, you said you enjoyed the technical drawing at school.
I was better at technical drawing than freehand.
Right. Did you then go on to take that further?
What I did was, when I started in the printing industry, when I left school, I worked in an art room, a studio for a printer.
Right.
And basically I was doing the forms makeup for, as I said to you earlier, mainly business stationery, which was invoices, letterheads, delivery notes, where a customer would either type into that on a typewriter, handwrite it at that time even, or as time progresses, the late 80s, print that out on a computer on a form that I'd designed with that company logo on and in their colours. You know, that changed into doing leaflets or brochures for customers, and using the technical drawing side as well as a little bit of artistry together. And what Apple did in the late 80s was allow the printing industry to do all of that on screen, which made it a lot easier. Yeah. Certainly if you didn't have the ability of a hand drawer, somebody that could, say, paint a field with sheep in, all of a sudden Apple allowed someone that couldn't do that to be able to do that with a press of a few keys.
This is interesting because, I mean, most people will know Apple as a phone company now, and they were crucial to the print industry at that time, weren't they? It was like sort of anyone who was, I mean, I remember Apple Macs being used at the Yorkshire Evening Press, which was where I worked. They were really sort of quite instrumental in driving that forward. How was that received at the time? Was it something that, did you have a number of colleagues that were like sort of really sort of turning their nose up at it? Was it perceived as cheating in any way?
I don't think I ever heard anyone say it was cheating, but it just made life a little bit easier. Yeah. Because if you're working in an environment, a printing environment, working for a print factory, and you're a studio in that factory, the pressure is on the art studio to get the print ready plates for a printing machine, so the guys in the print room aren't standing doing nothing. So their machines are kept busy. So what it allowed us to do was, it allowed us to instead of having maybe 3 or 4 different operations, you would start with a plain piece of paper, really. Do your drawing or whatever the customer wanted you to print. You would then have to put that into a large, what we call a vertical camera in a dark room, take a picture of it, then take a negative of it, then produce a printing plate from that would then go onto a printing machine to allow the job to be printed. So all of those processes were down to one with the Apple Mac. It went straight from design, sent directly into the printing machine itself, and then the printing machine printed the job out. So what it did for the art room, it allowed you to produce a lot more in a lot less time.
Right, and therefore
more productivity.
Your productivity increased.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so therefore, in your opinion, it was probably viewed as much more of an investment.
Yes.
And broadly welcomed then.
Yes, it was by the studios. Obviously, there was training on that needed, and still now, it's quite expensive to run those softwares. They're now, like a lot of things, they're on a monthly subscription.
Adobe is,
You used to buy it per year at the time. I think Quark Express, the last time I bought it was £2,000 a year to run that. And
people complain about Adobe now. That's quite remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, and Apple had it so one license was for one computer.
Yeah.
So if you had 6 in your art room,
you needed
6 times 2,000.
Wow,
that was the outlay.
I suppose there's that outlay there. However, what you are doing with that is you're creating that barrier to entry.
That's right, yeah.
And so you can then obviously you're offering service that you can kind of justify probably charging a little bit more for. Whereas now, I mean, I know everyone complains about Adobe subscriptions. I used to have the Adobe Suite, but then when they went subscription, I thought, I don't really want this. I don't want to be paying for something that I don't own, and so I switched to another software that did what I needed. Yeah. And I think it's fair to say most people don't use something like Photoshop to its fullest extent.
They use a Canva or something like that now.
That's it. And I mean, everyone's moved over to Canva, I think, for your basic things. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's what I do seem to remember as well. I don't know if you'll be able to confirm or deny. I do recall that Quark Express had an awful lot of pirated copies. And there was a theory, much in the same as I understand, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I've also heard that Microsoft also turned a blind eye similarly to home users having these pirated copies, because that then enabled them to become market leaders, because people were able to learn that software, and then that therefore became the accepted or easy for you as an employer, for example, to find people who could use that software because they maybe got it at home. Yeah. I don't know if that's because, I mean, as I say that to you now, it sounds a little bit like a conspiracy theory, but great marketing as well, I suppose, if you've got the foresight to do it.
I haven't come across that. We in the people in the businesses that I deal with, there wasn't any concern with people using it sort of illegally, or it was probably more, I would say, the personal market for people wanting to able to design things.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, so they'd come down heavily on the businesses if they were caught. Then obviously they're the ones that are going to get fined. No, interesting. That'll still be one I'll need to wonder about. So you're working in a studio for a printing company. How did things develop from there? Well,
there was a business a printing business in Lanchester at the time in the late 80s. Called Clark Business Forms. Okay. And I used to deal with them through my work. With the studio, we used to do work for them, for their clients, and they asked me, would I go and to come off sort of, if you would call the tools, come off that and go into outside into business and talk to their customers, because there was a lot of printing available at the time, but not everybody knew the limitations of it, certainly with business forms at that point.
So were you then effectively, they wanted to get you as a salesperson?
Well, it was half sales, it was half sales and half knowledge based, because it was at the time where, I don't know if you can remember, in the early sort of late 80s, early 90s, compact printers came out where they were sprocket driven, in concertina, fold paper with all sorts of business forms on them. And they wanted someone that...
Were they the ones with the holes at the side?
All the holes
that you then have to tear off.
And then you tear them off, So they work well for things like anything in hospital environments, they use those with bags attached.
I was going
to
to say, I
the
think they
back
are still used, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, still use them. And certain companies still use that as delivery notes. Is a 3 or a 4 part delivery note. They'll use that sort of system, and the bottom copy goes out with the driver.
Yeah.
One goes into the file, and that sort of arrangement, you know. So they decided they wanted someone with product knowledge.
Yeah.
As opposed to just someone in sales that would, if a customer said,
Go
"Can
out,
I have this?"
Overpromise and underdeliver.
Yes, absolutely.
Whereas you had the understanding.
Yeah. So so it was a soft sell, really. It was okay. I was there to promote the business and get more business in, but it was mainly to help to educate the customer as to what they could have and what they couldn't have.
Roughly what year would that have been?
It was 1989 to 1990.
Right, so late 80s, early 90s. The reason I'm asking that is what that company did with you, I think is, that sounds as though that's quite, I suppose, what people would expect now.
Yeah.
People now, I believe, don't like the hard sell.
Yeah.
I don't think people like being or feeling as though they've been sold to, and feeling as though they've got some, like the car salesman sort of coming along, and but that was very much on vogue around that time. So I'm just quite interested because that seems really forward thinking.
Yeah, there was a lot of people in print at the time.
Yeah,
where a print salesperson maybe didn't have a great knowledge in print. It maybe sold double glazing, or they'd sold cars, or
funny you should mention that. I do recall
like
a number of people I worked with at the paper would then go off and get jobs, a sales job for a printing company.
Yeah.
And it's like, in some ways, it's like, all right, well, we've sold newspaper advertising, we can therefore go and sell. But certainly someone who worked in advertising sales, I didn't have that any knowledge.
No.
As you would have done.
Yeah.
And I'm just, I mean, was it successful? Was it a successful approach from the company?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't class myself as a salesman, but now being self-employed for over 30 years, anybody that has their own business is a salesperson.
I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, because, and I think, do we think that's the reason for that? Is because of that double glazing salesman, that car salesman that comes along schmoozing out and non-stop talking, and so there is a reluctance to say.
There's a barrier up there.
I think for sort of people like us who remember that, we don't want to be associated with someone that's, just comes along and starts telling us what we need. Because I mean, the amount of interviews I've done on this alone confirms that for sales, it's about listening.
Yeah.
Identifying a problem and then providing a solution. If anything, it's about under-promising and over-delivering, because that then feeds your future business.
When I used to go into a business, and I mean, you'll know this in other businesses, there's sort of an 80-20 ruling, whereas you get 80% from 20% of your customers and things like that. I would go to a customer that maybe had an issue or needed to produce a certain product, a printed product, and they weren't sure how to do it. So I might be in there, and because of my background in printing, because during the early years when I was employed by someone else, I went to the College of Arts and Technology, which it was what it was called at the time in Newcastle, and I did 2 qualifications. One was graphic design, and the other one was machine printing. So I could do both, and a lot of clients, while you were there advising them on something, they would then say, "But I've also got this issue and I've got that issue. Do you know how I could get round that? Because our internal printer won't do that, or we don't know how to do that." So it's like a soft sell, really. You maybe go to try and sort one particular job out, and you come back with 4 orders rather than one, because you made them feel comfortable, because they knew that what you were telling them was correct, rather than just a salesperson saying, "Oh, well, I'll ask and I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can do that.
I think that, and that's why it does strike me as a really forward-thinking move of that company to employ you. I wouldn't expect that you would have described yourself at the time as a salesperson, would you?
No, I still don't really.
No, and again, I think that, you know, it's a language thing and an association thing, but yeah, that's the way good sales works now. And if you think about it, I mean, whatever we want, whether we want to go on holiday, whether we want a car, and it's a case of needs as well. Certainly living somewhere like Lanchester, your life's a lot easier if you've got a car.
Yeah.
And if you can get someone that will understand what you're looking for, will understand your needs, and they can provide a good solution, then you are going to view that favourably, rather than coming away with something that you feel they decided that they wanted to sell you.
Also, during that time in the early 90s to late 90s, there was a lot of companies slimmed down really.
Yeah.
They got rid of, some way, shape or form, their purchasing departments. So someone else was purchasing as well as maybe doing sales or something else. So in a lot of cases, if you made their life easy for them, it saved them a lot of time.
Yes.
And you would get the work because they would know that they could leave all of that hassle with you.
Do you know what? I've heard that mentioned with public sector as well. A friend of mine who's in business who does obviously I'll not name him in case this comes up, but he basically described it as a lot of people are quite lazy in that regard, and it's like as soon as they find something that works, lazy might be a little bit unkind, but fundamentally, if their life, I mean, everyone's life's so busy now, everyone seems to be so stressed. If you can make someone's life that bit less stressful, then most, certainly businesses, can see, and again, I suppose it comes back to investment, doesn't it? They can invest that, because whilst if they shopped around, they might find possibly a cheaper solution, but all that time that they spent looking for they weren't doing their main job. That's or getting on with the job that needs to be done. And I suppose that's where your focus comes into it.
Yeah, they might spend £30 worth of their time to save £5 on a...
And I think that's, I mean, ultimately, it does come down to what your time's worth, doesn't it, I suppose?
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of when you were, when was it in Lanchester, just out of interest?
It was in where I started work in 1989. It was above, which is now the estate agents.
Oh, right.
11 Seafront Street.
Yes, that's
bar.
Which, funny enough, is where the first ever podcast of this series took place.
Really?
Yes. Simon Bourne with his shoe company. That's where you started work. So
that's where I started with at that time. Yeah.
That's an interesting point for the podcast. There we go. We're come full circle. I think, and this is a 72nd episode. So there we go. So all from Simon's place, where he's now working downstairs. Right. So that's quite amazing. Now, in terms of the lessons that I'm not even sure you would have been conscious of taking them, because just going back to what you were saying about sales, you've been successful, or you've certainly seen a successful approach to selling for this print company, and you've subsequently recognised as someone that's had your own business, and applied that because you kind of have to, about finding solutions and I mean, or was it a conscious thing for you?
Well, I was forced into it, to be honest, because I was made redundant.
Right.
After a few years at that company, I was made redundant, and I had a few offers from other print companies to go back into the art room and do design again.
Yeah.
But I decided that I would give it a go myself and start MK. It was then I had the name of MK Printing Services, and I changed it slightly to Solutions or Design and MK Print Design or MK.
I was going to say, currently it's MK Print and Design, isn't it?
No, it's MK Print Solutions. But it does include design as well.
Yes.
And in a lot of cases now, what we print over the years has totally changed, of course.
I was going to say, it's been such a turbulent time for the industry in so many ways, hasn't it?
I mean, it was May 1993 when I first set up on my own.
Right.
And from that point, from doing, as I mentioned to you before, business forms that could be a letterhead, an invoice, a delivery note, different forms for acknowledgement forms, remittance, and checks. We went into security print. You print checks and with holograms on and watermark papers and things like that for businesses. And
so you really have done quite a broad.
But that sort of stationery over the past 10 years has really dipped.
I can imagine. So it's interesting because as you're saying about the business stationery, I'm thinking I don't think I've ever had compliment slips. I don't think I've ever.
People very rarely now use business. They might use a letterhead or a compliment slip if they send a sample of something. If a client wants a sample, they might put a compliment slip in with it then. But the amount that they use has drastically reduced. And the likes of invoices now are all computer generated and emailed, and they rely on the client to print the purchase invoice out for their own records, So where the printing has shifted is it's shifted from actual printed forms to people having to buy plain paper and toner cartridges for their printer to print out what somebody sent them, if they're going to print that out.
Is that something that you do then? Are you selling paper?
I've got a stationery side as well, whereas I sell toners for the printers as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, that's...
because normally the buyer that buys print is buying the office stationery.
Yeah.
Now, the office stationery has also taken a hit after lockdown.
Yes.
Because after lockdown, people now, quite a lot of businesses allow you to work at least half the working week from home.
Yeah.
And they'll use hot desks. So they've got smaller premises and people share desks because they're not in all the time. And if they're not in all the time, they're not using files, they're not using pens out of the stationery drawer or highlighters out of the stationery drawer. So the stationery side has also dropped.
Yeah.
But what has sort of lifted in the last 10 years particularly is printing around funerals.
Really?
Yeah, because people now want a printed order of service or not just for that event as a tool for that service, but as a keepsake. We'll print maybe a picture book with pictures in.
It does make sense, doesn't it? I mean,
because
I suppose the alternative is like sort of having that emailed on a device, which seems really vulgar. Yeah. And I think it's. I mean, the fact that you're still going just illustrates that there is a purpose. There's still a degree of etiquette surrounding society that wouldn't want. I mean, I don't know. We may go there, after we're both long gone, and the kids are saying, "Well, it just makes sense. We'll do this," and that's how they decide to do things, and that'll be up to them because we won't be here.
I think things round a death are, and I suppose weddings are very similar.
Yeah.
Whereas they want something physical to feel at the event and give to somebody, and with a funeral, it's the last thing you're doing for somebody.
Yeah.
So if you as a family have an order of service, obviously on the day, either in church or at a crematorium, if you're not a believer and you go straight to crematorium, if you have an order of service, then that is functional for what's happening in that service.
Yeah.
But after that, for the family particularly, it's a keepsake for them, a remembrance of their loved one, and they can either stand that up on on the top of a set of drawers or put it, but it's always there to look at.
There is something, there is something very different in the experience, and even if we go to books, sort of people speculated that the e-readers would be the death of the book, but I mean, I like to read books when I'm on holiday. and I've never once been tempted to buy an e-reader. I was a comic nerd when I was a kid, and I've got a Marvel Unlimited subscription on my iPad now, but it's not quite the same.
Roy the Rovers was mine.
Roy the Rovers?
Yeah,
wow,
that was mine in the 70s.
I do remember Roy the Rovers.
Yeah.
I was atrocious at football, so I never got really into Roy the Rovers. But right. I do remember him there. That was a British comic, wasn't it? Obviously, Marvel they were the American ones. I mean, the big difference now is obviously with the iPad, I can make the panels bigger, so it is a little bit easier to read. And obviously, when I was younger, that wasn't an issue.
No.
But what I do find interesting, and I know obviously you've got grandkids as well, is despite having this amazing camera on them at all times, what I've now noticed with both my daughters, they've started just signing up for these printed photography services.
All right, yeah.
And they've got the photos on the phone, and they've sent a way to get them printed out so they can stick them up on their walls or the wardrobes.
Or yeah.
And so that's still very much in. Even though they're into the electronic side of it,
they want some print.
They want something printed. They want something that they can touch. And I think, I mean, we'll all walk around with like albums worth of photographs on our phones. It's a very different experience than to find an old photo album and just sit and go through it. And when I've been around to my mum and dad's and I see their photo albums of me as a child, or I've been showing my kids when they were young, when they were younger and were interested and found it funny, they could actually look at it and they'll go through that. And there was something a little bit more special about that experience as well. I think. I mean, it's fun to flick through your phone. And it does still evoke memories, but it's not quite the same, is it?
It's not, because also it's very, very hard to find what you're looking for on the phone, I find.
Yes.
And every time there's an update on that, it tends to be even harder to find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Because you get used to the one previous.
Well, I think the thing is that's with albums, original photo albums where you put your photos in, it was just there, and then you put that on a shelf and knew where it was. And no one's going to change that.
You probably like what my parents were. They wrote everything either on the back of the photograph, the time and the date and what it was and who it was, or at the beginning of that album, exactly what that was there for.
That's it. I suppose you just had to do that organisation, whereas like the phones tend to try and do that for you. Yeah. So, I mean, my next question is just kind of relating to when the Apple Mac was introduced. You've obviously seen a huge amount of change. I mean, how long have you been in business now?
Well, as I say, I set up on 1993, May 93. Right. So that's 32 years.
Wow.
Next month.
Straight away, congratulations for that, because if we think most businesses don't last past 5 years now, do they?
Yeah.
That's I mean, just to say that's a huge achievement. And I'm trying to think when we first met as with you as a printer.
Yeah.
I think that must have been about maybe sort of 9 or 10 years ago.
I think it was it my daughter's wedding?
That's when we first met, but I'm thinking thinking as a printer.
Right, yeah.
That must have been about 9 or 10 years ago when I'd ordered something from the community centre to advertise their weddings, and I think you printed as a brochure.
We did, yeah.
That's right. And I know at the time you were experiencing changes, and we were chatting about that at the time.
I printed a lot for schools at the time as well.
Yes, as well. So I know my wife obviously knows you through that.
Yeah.
So you know a lot of people. You're well connected.
Yeah. Well, I'm now 60.
Wow. That's I mean, it is a remarkable achievement to speak to someone that's been as successful as yourself in that regard. If you're enjoying this content, please do like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell to let you know exactly when another podcast's going to drop. Questions that need to be asked, really. The first one is, what's been the biggest change that you've witnessed to the industry?
I suppose, certainly early on, which you've already broached it, going from manual to computers for the design.
I suppose everything else
has been absolutely massive, really.
Yeah, I suppose everything else since then has kind of been within the computer.
Yes,
so
absolutely, yeah. And the printing machines, you can still, and a lot of people still buy a proper, say, German Heidelberg what I'll call a 4-unit printing machine, which takes the 4 colours, cyan, magenta, yellow and black. You know, you still get those. They're hundreds and hundreds of thousands. Whereas people, but now, they're mainly geared for long runs, which is why in years gone by, colour printing was more sparse, because people couldn't afford it if they just wanted 100 of something. You know, it's not competitive until you get 3,000-5,000
It's always been really based on economies of scale for
whereas the
industry,
digital machines taken away that. You know, the digital machines taking all away the setup on machines, because it might take you an hour to set a print machine up to run a job, to run 100 off. Whereas now the digital machine, once it's sent from the computer using the correct software, it runs it off and it goes. You can get either a machine that just prints or a one that actually folds it, staples it, and brings it out the other end ready. You know, and they tend to be leased now because they're changing, like computers are. You buy one and in 6 months' time there's a new development,
new update.
You know, an update there. So everything's leased now, whereas you lease a machine for 1 or 2 years. The end of the 2 years, you lease it again, but you lease the newer model. And they come and they replace it. So,
wow.
You know.
So, and the next question has to be, all your years running a successful business, and frankly, seeing the levels of changes that you've seen. And I'm aware of a large number of printing businesses that have just gone by the wayside. They've decided to throw in the towel. You've kept going and you are still in business. And I think it's, as we've already mentioned, you're here delivering a job for me that you've just done, which it was first class and I'm very happy with. So thank you for that. What, how have you managed it? How have you done it?
I just look on it as being, I've always had the ethos that give someone something that you'd be happy with yourself, and if you would do that, then I don't think you can go far wrong in life, in whatever, whether that's business or anything else. You know, only do someone a good turn, and treat somebody like you'd be like to be treated yourself. And I think that works.
So that's a very human message, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And because I think it's easy when you go on LinkedIn to get preoccupied with the finances side of things and things like that. But after 32 years, you're sat there and you're telling me it's about focusing on the human side of things, the relationships, and doing something that you're proud of.
The businesses that I get the most work out of are the ones that I can sit and have a coffee with. And you don't sometimes even talk about business while you're doing that. And the work just comes in. And even if it's something that's a little bit left field to printing and stationery, they'll come on and say, can you get that for me? And I might turn around in one case, and I'll keep this company anonymous, but a company rang me one day. Your customers become your friends. And in business, you know, and he rang me up and asked me for a product that he'd been buying that he thought might be in my stationery catalogue, and I said, no, it's not. I can get it from this company, but it's basically, I'm buying that to sell to you. You can get that from him directly. I think it's the same company you use. And he said, but I don't want to deal with 3 and 4 different people, Michael. I'd rather just deal with you. I know you've got to make money out of it, and it's one invoice for me at the end of the month rather than 4, 5 or 6.
But that then comes down to the time, doesn't it? And what his time is worth, which is what you said earlier.
He says, I'm happy for you. I said, the box will come and it'll be the same box as what you've been getting for that product that you want. I'll have just sourced it for you, and I'll have paid for it up front, because that's what you've got to do with the certain products, and you'll get your normal 30 days net with me. And he was quite happy for that.
And again, that helps with cash flows,
wasn't it? Using me
Yeah.
because he knows I'll do him a decent deal and a decent job, and it takes away hassle that going back to it's a time consuming thing. that he would have to pay on his card. He's then got to take that receipt to his accounts department, and he'd reimburse him for this because I've had to pay for it on a credit card.
There's a cost for everything, and I think that sort of illustrates that. And if you can provide that service, so the next question and final question really comes: what comes next for you? It's you've been in business for 32 years. In 32 years' time, are you still going to be going?
I hope so. But I sometimes feel as though, I suppose at the age that I am now, probably on the horizon will be retirement at some point, in this next decade. But at this moment in time, that's not where I am.
No.
People keep asking me, and people who I went to school with, quite a lot of them have worked for local authorities.
Yeah,
their pensions are there, and they've left, or they're on part time. I don't feel as though the job that I do, I can cut days out of it, because when I was talking to you about the funeral business, they don't really wait for anybody. It's the same around Christmas and holiday times. It's very difficult for me around those times to take holiday. In most cases, if I do go away, I take my equipment with me, just in case that one of those funeral directors needs me.
It's like your business has almost become a part of you, hasn't it?
Yeah, so maybe I could cut down my hours per day, but I don't think I could cut out the days, because if I was to work, say, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and a funeral director was to say to me, not so much in business print, because that's okay, but say for instance a funeral director was to say to me on that Thursday, we've got a funeral on Tuesday, can you do me an order of service? Oh, well, I'm not back until Tuesday. It doesn't work, you see.
No.
So I think on that side, then I need to really be there, sort of at least some part of every day. But certainly I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I meet a lot of people, certainly with the funeral trade, because I deal with a lot of families. At that time, you meet a lot of nice people. Genuinely, I like talking to people. And it's nice to give them something that comforts them at that time, which is quite sad for them. So as far as the printing industry goes, the amount of print that people want is decreasing, but you just got to look at other avenues, like things like security print for gift vouchers and gift cards, things like that, And a lot of leaflets now are leading people through a QR code or in a business card.
Absolutely.
To get you to a certain area on their website.
So there's always opportunities. So you're going to be there to service them.
But we're still enthusiastic. We're still going 32 years and hopefully, certainly for the next decade, I would hope.
That sounds fantastic, Michael. What an amazing story and amazing achievements that you've managed throughout that career. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Cheers.